Communication is extremely important. Professors tell us online what's going to be on the exams and what homework we should do. We discuss hangout times with our friends, and we're constantly being bombarded by information from social media. But there's another form of communication that isn't all this outward communication, and that would be your inner dialogue. Now, your own self-talk can demotivate you and make it feel like you aren't in control of your own life, but it can also grant you superpowers like learning faster and also building habits that seem really, really small at the beginning, but then starts compounding like a snowball at the top of a hill and starts getting bigger and bigger. Now, if you've watched my first video on this topic, I'll link the video up here if you haven't already, but this is the first step to achieving the growth mindset that I talked about. And so what can we learn from self-talk? Well, I'll be dividing this video into 3 sections: identity, self-talk, and improvement. So let's dive right into it. Before we talk about anything that's related to this voice inside your head, we have to talk about something else, and that would be identity. We're going to be delving into a little psychology here, but identity is the embodiment of who you are, what you perceive the world as through your lens, and also what you are thinking subconsciously in your mind. Now, that's why identity is a really, really important subject, because it can make you do things that seem unnatural to others. Now, it's not like an alien is out there in space controlling you, controlling your movements, and making you do whatever they want you to do. It's nothing like that. But your identity is something that is mainly connected to your past and the experiences you had when you were little. And these experiences influence your own thinking later on in life. For example, I'm usually a person who showers at night after everything, the whole day is done. I go home, shower, and then go to bed. But when I moved into my dorm and now I'm in this dorm living space, I started to notice another group of people. And these people shower in the morning. And my brain is like, what? How can this be? I've always showered at night and I was accustomed to it. I didn't think twice about it. Or another example would be when I was talking to my friends who are international students. And for me, back in my hometown, I would always bike as a mode of transportation to get from point A to point B. But for them, it was just a leisure activity. So they didn't use a bike to go places, but instead it was more like leisure. You bike around and then you're done. And presumably, since many of them are from large cities, this is for safety reasons, but it really is it's very interesting to see another perspective. And even with these simple examples, you can see how one way of thinking is going to impact your future. And in the future, this will dictate how you'll react to unusual circumstances. Like maybe you're stepping outside the box, you're doing something for the first time, and so your mindset and your identity going to making something or learning something new will vary depending on the past experiences that you had and what you've built up from the past. Right now, I still think of biking. I have my bike here at the dorm, and I bike from my dorm all the way to my classes, to honestly everywhere. It's really convenient. But my friends who are international students, it doesn't cross their mind that biking is a mode of transportation, just because they grew up thinking that it was only a leisure activity. Now, this is a very simplified way of explaining this topic, but the moral of the story is that your identity is very, very closely related to your past experiences and what your surroundings have influenced your own thinking. So what do these examples and talking about identity relate to this growth mindset? Well, as you walk through life, there's always going to be challenges that may alter your story or is going to hinder you before you find the answer or find your way past the obstacle. And sometimes this experience or impact may change the way you view the world. It's a paradigm shift. So take, for example, a little boy who struggled with English and he didn't really have a supportive environment at school and at home. And so if he keeps getting bad grades, he's always going to think that English is just not meant for him. It's out of his control. And so when he goes on to adulthood, he's always going to carry this notion with him that he's not good at English. And English class or grammatical points, reading comprehension, all of that stuff. And so this belief will stay with him into adulthood, and it will constrain his life because he thinks that he will not be able to change his future within this topic unless an event occurred for him to realize and reconstruct his self-diagnosed weakness. So these beliefs are a large factor within our identity. So when you begin to identify with something, let's say you're a dancer, and you begin to start identifying with it, you're going to be more tied to the subject. One of my favorite examples of this is from Atomic Habits. Imagine two people resisting a cigarette. When offered a smoke, the first person says, "No thanks, I'm trying to quit." It sounds like a reasonable response, but this person still believes they are a smoker who is trying to be someone else. They are hoping their behavior will change while carrying around the same beliefs. The second person declines by saying, "No thanks, I'm not a smoker." It's a small difference, but this statement signals a shift in identity. Smoking was part of their former life, not their current one. They no longer identify as someone who smokes. So this shows the importance of self-talk and how your own wording can affect what you do down the road and your behavior right now. And to do this most effectively, we have to install our own growth mindset. And so the second point within this video is self-talk. What does identity have to do with self-talk? Right, so here's where the topic of self-talk comes in. Self-talk is something that naturally stems from your identity. It's the voice in our head that pours in reassuring confidence that says, "You got this," when you're doing something that's familiar to you. But it's also the voice that anxiously squeaks and screams, "You don't know what you're doing. You don't know what you're doing. What are you doing? Oh my gosh, you're gonna mess up." When you do something that isn't familiar to you, that you're doing for the first time, that you had to get out of your comfort zone to do. So you can see how this is very powerful. It influences you in many different ways. Now within this voice is a verb that is very powerful. And that verb is to be. To be. You are, we are, they are. All of these are conjugations of the verb to be. But the most important conjugation for self-talk is I am. I am, yes, I am. I am a swimmer. I am an engineer. I am, honestly, whatever you are. So these sentences are very important to the person that is saying them. It helps them identify and connect with other people and tell others that they are very involved within the subject. Like, I am an engineer. I like STEM. I like to make things with my hands and try to solve problems that I see within this world and try to make sense of the world through my own lens and then solve the problem using that lens and the knowledge that I gained from school or my own intuition. So that is something that I can connect with, and you have plenty of those too. Everyone has to connect with something. And so these words can share your passions, share what you are about, but they can also have a downside. See, the I am can also be something that is negatively connotated, and that would be something like, I'm bad at math, or this doesn't start with I am, but it stems from the same problem, my memory is terrible. By saying these sentences, you're going to be constraining yourself to the idea of, let's say my memory is horrible. I might be saying that for the rest of my life if I'm saying that now. My memory is horrible. I'm never going to remember people's names when I see them, or I'm never going to remember grocery lists, so I always have to write them down. And so I would be constraining myself to that idea. And now everyone goes through this. You're always a beginner at something. It's just a mindset that you go through when you think of something that you're not as good at, and you're not as well versed as someone else. But it's always about improving step by step each day. And what is most likely is that if you think that something is out of your control, you'll pin all those negative emotions on being something that you aren't good at. So let's take that little kid who struggled in English class, and let's move him to high school. Now he's in high school, but he's still receiving he's still receiving bad grades, not as well as he would have liked. And so he's telling himself at this point that he's just not good at English, it's not his subject. And by doing this, he's actually indirectly reinforcing that this isn't within his control. It's not within his control to understand English, to understand this subject. So this, if you remember from the last video, I'll link it up here if you haven't seen it, but this is an example of a fixed mindset. All right, so how do we avoid this trap? So first off, if you want to learn a skill, try not to put any limitations on what you're learning. So for me, and probably you too, I'm trying to learn how to learn faster. And so I can become more efficient with my learning and be more productive, so I can do more in less time. And with the time that I've gained from doing that, I can do other things that I'm interested in. Maybe like doing another project or learning another language, something like that. But that's why I want to do this. And so what I need to do is to have a mindset of a learner, become someone who learns, and try to identify with that identity. I'm going to identify as a learner as fast as possible, and then within that, my inner dialogue will change. Let's say I'm struggling in an English class, for example. I could say that, wow, this class isn't for me, I'm just not meant for English. Or what I'm trying to do with this growth mindset and this identity as a learner is to think about, what am I doing wrong? How can I improve? How can I read faster while still maintaining my reading comprehension? How do I get better at grammar structures? And then that is how I learn faster. There's nothing like putting your own limitations on yourself, like capping yourself at one distinct level and not being able to grow on beyond that. And so you've observed something from the past that says, okay, this is not meant for you. But if you think beyond that and just say, okay, how can I learn from my experiences? How can I try this a different way? And then you can go beyond, past that limitation, and go on beyond what you thought was ever possible within that subject. So as I identify as a learner, I'm going to keep saying in my internal dialogue, I'm going to keep saying, how do I improve on this subject? Maybe it's reading faster while still maintaining comprehension. How do I know if this certain grammar structure is correct? And without the limitation of me saying, oh, I'm really bad at English, I should just give up at this point, or I'm really bad at English, I don't think I can improve at all because it was just given to me. I'm just not good. Instead of doing that, instead of capping myself at this level, I can go beyond past that. And so that is the main point of identity. Everyone is a beginner at one point, right? As you begin going to the gym, going to a certain class, maybe more STEM classes, then you become associated with this word. Maybe you like to work out, and you like to go to the pool. You like to go to the pool to swim. And so that you become a swimmer, and more times you consolidate that, you become more of a swimmer. And you, with all that evidence behind you, always going to the pool and always doing your workout as planned, you are consolidating the fact that you are a swimmer. And so then after that, your pride is connected with you being a swimmer. You are a swimmer. And so that is very powerful. That's what's going to connect you. It's a habit at that point, really. And so this identity factor is really, really powerful, and it maintains your inner dialogue. Now let's go with another example. Maybe you want to be an engineer. So you're taking a bunch of STEM classes. You're taking all these STEM classes, you're taking math, you got physics, you have chemistry, and you're going through all that. Once you keep stacking classes, that is when you keep saying, you're consolidating the fact that you are an engineer. You are part of STEM. If you go into more English classes, more anthropology, political science, you are consolidating the fact that you are that person, that you keep going to class, you're interested by it, you're interested by the impact it makes. That is your identity. That is what you're identifying with. So this identity is built up by your self-talk. So I remember a clear example from Atomic Habits. A friend of James Clear, the author of the book, actually lost 100 pounds just by saying, what would a healthy person do every single instance of the day, any time that she had to make a decision? Should I walk to the grocery store or take a cab? Should I eat a salad or eat a hot dog? Something like that. So once you keep consolidating the fact, you're taking small little steps throughout the way to making your identity. Maybe it's trying to break a bad habit. You're going to take little steps. It's not a sudden win. And so if you can maintain the self-talk, that's where it can be ingrained into your identity. Does this make sense? Like, you are trying to change your own self. And within that own self, within that change, then you can change outcomes. Then you can reach your goals. But it's all within you first. It's a battle in the mind before it comes out in the world in the form of an idea or a project or something like that. And so positive self-talk and changing your identity is a very, very, very hard habit to install. But once you do it, you'll be able to learn faster, you'll be more resilient to stress, you can do plenty of other things since you're not dwelling on the negative things that are holding you back. You're not capping yourself. You're not limiting yourself to what you thought you should be, what you previously thought you should be because of your past experiences and what preconceived notions that you had about a certain topic. But now you can go beyond that by changing your self-talk and therefore changing your identity. One of my favorite quotes is from Henry Ford, and he says, if you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And so that message is, it all starts here, right here in the brain. And so that's why self-talk is the gateway to a growth mindset. So try to open up your mindset through your inner dialogue with the few tips that I gave you today, and also strive to become more confident with whatever you want to do. And for me, it's learning how to learn and trying to be more productive, more efficient as possible with whatever I'm doing, mainly studying. But there may still be a few roadblocks down the path that we're taking. So if you want a few tips to make achieving your goals a bit easier, please click to the next video where I'll be talking, hypothesizing, answering a few questions that you may have wondered already, which are, why is life so difficult? Why can't it be easy? And also, why can't everything be fun? So click over, and I will see you in the next one.